when I can ask it. Are we good?
Oh, we're still live, yeah.
Yeah, is this better now? Is this okay? Cool. Okay. Anybody that's driven their Tesla from Phoenix to LA or San Diego has certainly noticed that every supercharger seems to be in front of a Carl's Jr.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah.
Okay, so we're all dying to know, what is the deal with Tesla superchargers and Carl's Jr.?
And that is a question for Tesla. So if anyone is listening that works for Tesla, does somebody's uncle work for Carl's Jr.? Mm-hmm. Or were they perhaps the most accommodating regarding allowing that kind of activity? You would think that any merchant would be interested in having a captive audience in the parking lot, especially people that are driving luxury cars. So.
Yeah, sure thing.
But that's a good question that the fact checkers out there are going to have to update us on. Or is it just indicative of what's going on in the Southwest? Maybe in Illinois, it's a different, fast food chain that's getting all the attention.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I haven't driven a Tesla in Illinois, so I'm not sure. Actually, I haven't in Illinois. I have in Missouri, and I think in Missouri the supercharger was next to a smash burger. So it seems like generally wherever you're charging your Tesla, you're going to be getting some hamburgers or cheeseburgers of some kind, right?
One segment we had in our video on superchargers was, folks, this is a voluntary effort. Let's keep these things clean. The worst scenario was we were going to San Diego, stopped at the Carl's Jr., and went to Supercharge, and there was a spent diaper laying on the ground. I mean, that's pretty far-fetched,
Was this in Quartzsite?
Quartzsite, yes.
Quartzsite.
Yeah.
So the Quartzsite location is actually interesting. If anybody watching has been there, and if you've been a Tesla owner for a couple of years, you've noticed that site has it's quadrupled in size. It used to be just one row of superchargers right there in the main parking lot next to the Carl's Jr. Now they have a huge, massive. I think there's like 36 total.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't have that much history with them, but we like the one in Yuma too. The Colorado River is right next to it. And the water's usually warm this time of year. And when I have the grandkids with us, we usually go swimming while we're charging.
Nice.
So that's fun.
So I know, right now, there's probably quite a few people that know me or watching. I let a lot of my friends know I was doing this. But while we're talking about supercharging, one question, excuse me, people come to me with Tesla questions a lot because of my affiliation with you guys. And one question I get very often is, before someone buys one, people are always really concerned about how to care for the battery. And they're asking me about charging it, and they're asking me about, is it bad to supercharge it every day and all that. I mean, I've been supercharging mine primarily for the last 2 years, and I've driven almost 100,000 miles with no issues. So is that, what would you say about that to people? People seem really concerned about taking good care of their battery pack, and it seems like the things are kind of indestructible, though, don't you think?
Well, you can certainly do things to prolong the life of your battery pack. Definitely not charging it to 100%. That makes a huge difference.
Right.
The jury's still out on the impact of supercharging on these batteries, but on the drawing board, it appears that does decrease the life of the battery. And what we're finding is that, at least in the aging battery packs, you can accelerate the decline by doing a healthy diet of supercharging. We ask people to begin to back off if they want to avoid that $20,000 to $22,000 battery replacement anytime soon.
Right, but they can but if their battery pack, something happens to it, they can just bring it to you, right?
Well, yeah, us or Tesla. Tesla will replace it with a brand new 90 kW per hour battery pack, whereas we repair the one that they have, and that breathes some new life into the car, which oftentimes is more cost effective. Not everybody has $22,000 to put in a $25,000 car.
That doesn't make sense, right?
Right.
Nice. I know when I think with mine, Tesla actually under warranty replaced, I had a 60 kilowatt hour battery pack, and I sent it to Tesla, and they gave it back to me with a brand new 70 kilowatt hour battery pack under warranty replacement. So that's pretty cool.
Definitely. So we've got a few news items that we thought we would cover. Maybe it will stimulate some of the AMA Ask Me Anything question session. One of the things that we came up with within the last week, the Berlin Gigafactory. Apparently there is declining opposition now. And there were as many as 44 objections. Let me get my mouse going here. There we go. Okay. So the current number of objections against the Berlin Gigafactory is at 44. And that was from Environment Minister Axel Vogel-Greens on Wednesday. 44 may seem like a lot, but that's down substantially from last year, which was 373 objections. Now, being German, I understand this mentality well. The Germans are very environmentally conscious, much more so than other cultures, I find. And they are concerned about some lizards and snakes who may be disturbed, or their habitats may be disturbed, and their hibernation patterns may be interrupted. Now, the other part of this is the Gigafactory in Berlin is scheduled to churn out 500,000 cars annually, which is pretty dramatic, and it's vital because there's a huge market in Europe.
So there is 500,000 cars. Is that more than any other Tesla Gigafactory currently, or?
I don't have the statistics, but it's not up there. Once we start talking about Giga Texas,
right,
that's going to be even more. But it addresses the European market. The difficulty that Tesla has had all along addressing the Euro market is the cost of shipping. You know, they're built in California, and they have to go all the way across an ocean in order to be deployed in a particular country. What this European presence now in Berlin allows them to do is to centrally locate and begin shipping out of that location. The same is true, by the way, in Texas. If you think about it, Texas is really centrally located, and it reduces the cost of the vehicles shipping it around the United States.
Sure.
The Berlin Gigafactory is also set to start operations with the Model Y. They say they're raring to go. They're still waiting final approval, but they do plan on having Model Y production fully online in Grünheide by the end of this year.
Awesome. So, Pete, I just want to ask, in case anybody's curious. So, with so why should we care? Why should we care in the United States about what's going on with the Berlin Gigafactory? How does that impact us here?
Well, it may reduce the number of vehicles that are built in the United States by Tesla, but there doesn't seem to be any shortage of demand, so I don't think that impact is going to be felt. More importantly, I think it's a global perspective. You know, the more EV adoption we can nurture, the better off this planet is going to be.
Sure thing.
So from that standpoint, it definitely has an impact on the environment.
Awesome.
So in February of 2020, Tesla prepared the site for construction, and initially the German courts decided to temporarily stop the clearing of trees. There are, again, some environmental groups that were very much concerned about the impact this was going to have. Someone summed it up nicely, though, in a comment that I saw that was related to this articles. And they said, the trees will be replaced, but more importantly, ICE vehicles will be replaced. And that's the overall goal.
It's interesting. We're making the electric cars because we want to help the environment, but we've got to make sure that the way we're making the cars is also not hurting the environment, right?
Exactly. It doesn't contribute to, or it doesn't negate the impact of having a sustainable car.
Yeah, all this stuff seems like it's probably not super easy to figure out.
Definitely. So getting into, or staying with that topic, recycling batteries. There's a lot of concern what is going to happen to these electric vehicle, to the batteries once these cars are retired, which, by the way, is a whole nother subject. What is the lifespan of an electric vehicle? And that is being written as we speak as well, because it is distinctly different than an ICE vehicle. You don't have as many moving components. So we're beginning to learn that the EVs are going to last longer than the ICE vehicles. How long is yet to be determined.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious to me. I mean, I've had a lot of cars, and so the silver I'm driving right now, 2013 Model S, 70 kilowatt hour. It has a 70 kilowatt hour battery, and it has almost 180,000 miles on it, and it runs. I mean, it drives and runs just as good as new. I think we could easily expect that to go well over 500,000 miles, wouldn't you think?
Oh, I've heard million-mile projections. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a customer that drives about 120 miles a day works at the Apple plant out here in East Valley. And after 200,000 miles on his car, his brakes are still good.
Yep.
So there's a huge difference in the amount of wear and tear on an EV versus ICE cars, even brakes because of regenerative braking.
Oh, sure thing. And for anybody watching too, that's maybe doesn't have a Tesla yet, and you want to know what maintenance is like. So I bought mine. I got my 2013 Model S at 89,000 miles. I've driven it almost 100,000 miles after that in the last 2 years, and I've spent less than $2,000 on non-routine maintenance and repairs. It's pretty good for 100,000 miles, right?
It is, yeah. Think about an ICE engine. How long would that last?
I mean, I would have been certainly dealing with like transmission issues and all kinds of leaks and just all that really horrible stuff, right?
All right, the leaks. I remember those well.
Yeah.
So lithium-ion cells, they can be 100% recycled.
Really?
And there's a statement from Tesla that while Tesla works with third-party recyclers, we are also in the recycling business in-house. The first sentence in this quote was, in the fourth quarter of 2020, Tesla successfully installed the first phase of our cell recycling facility at Giga, Nevada, for in-house processing, both battery and manufacturing scrap and end-of-life batteries. They also have started in Nevada and will be following with Berlin and Texas. No mention of Fremont so far.
Okay.
J.B. Strobel, the CTO of Tesla for 15 years, now gone, is running a company called Redwood Materials in Carson City, Nevada, and his company has been selected as one of the recyclers that Tesla will use. We have a picture here that we can throw up here. That's JB there. Then there's a picture of the recycling plant up in Carson, Nevada, which is a fairly large facility. Here you can see pallets of batteries with tarps over them, which is most likely because they don't have enough room, although it's a huge building.
So this is really cool because this is showing what happens to the battery cars, right? We've all agreed that's the way of the future. Everybody's going to be driving battery cars eventually, and this is important because this is the end of the life of the battery pack, right?
Yes, and these
Cool.
This product that you see here is not only from EVs. With Redwood Materials, they say they have an enormous warehouse which is filled with piles of dead smartphones, power tools, and other gadgets waiting to be dismantled and recycled. Now, Redwood claims that they can process and recover over 80% of the lithium, 95 to 98% of the nickel, copper, and cobalt in the batteries. I encourage you, if you're curious, there's some good YouTube videos on Redwood Materials, and it's a fascinating process to watch.
So what happens again? So what happens when they do recycle these? What happens after that? How do they distribute the material, like the lithium, nickel, copper, and cobalt? Where does that go after they're done?
That's an interesting economic question. The product, the waste product, most likely has some cost attached. You have transportation costs to get it to a facility like this. The facility may or may not pay for it or may actually charge for the processing of that waste. Then you have an end product which now can be sold back to the manufacturers.
Interesting.
So there are ways to monetize this, and of course it's all healthy, because what we don't want to have happen is to have all these materials end up in landfills and to have to continue the type of mining operations that are destroying the environment to an extent as well to get those raw materials out of the ground.
Sure.
So
and then,
closing that loop, 100% recycling would be the ideal situation.
But so what about the rest of the car though? What about the frame and the body and all the other components in the car? Are those reusable, or are we thinking the frames of these cars will just be around forever and we'll just continually swap out the battery packs as they go bad?
I think the ICE car experience has taught us that recycling is viable. The reclamation of steel, for example, in the car bodies, stainless steel, cast iron in the engine blocks, all of that has been done for many, many decades. In a Tesla, you have a lot of aluminum, and aluminum is a wonderful building material. It's light, it's easy to process and machine. So yeah, there's a lot of recycling that can take place there too. What the unknown right now is, how long will these car bodies last? How long will these Tesla Model S's, for example, last? Will they continue to be revived and rejuvenated? Essentially, the suspension components are, low-tech steel auto type product, which can easily be replaced.
Right.
The interior can be reupholstered and redone, and you have a battery pack and a drivetrain that can be replaced. So it'll be interesting to see how the economics play out in terms of being able to recondition and rebuild these cars.
It's super interesting. And then, I'm curious, so like the purpose of EVs, obviously we want to save the planet, right? We want to help, we want to stop what's happening to the environment. So I'm curious, do you think is all this happening fast enough for that to actually happen?
There are a lot of people that are on opposing sides of that question.
Oh yeah, that's daily conversation.
The most ominous is the group that feels that by the end of the century, unless we have reduced our carbon footprint to zero, we have reached levels that are no longer repairable on this planet.
And that's pretty scary. Do you think that's true?
Well, I hope it's not true. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
So we were talking about JB, Redwood Materials. I talked to JB months ago, and he actually owns one of the pre-production Roadsters, one of the engineering prototypes. It's bright yellow, and which he believes to be the oldest Tesla still on the road. He says that he has the original prototype Tesla battery pack in this car, and at that time it was still functioning and going strong. We get a lot of questions. How long will my battery last?
Same. I get that every day.
Yeah. Well, this pre-production Roadster is probably 2007, I would say. So you've got a number of years there, and if it's still functioning, this could be a predictor of what a Model S could do.
Sure. So since it's pre-production, that one doesn't have a VIN?
It does, yeah.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, they had engineering prototypes. They had validation prototypes before engineering prototypes, or during. I'm not sure which now. And then founders, and then eventually signature, and then it went to the general public. But 2,400 Roadsters is all they built.
Nice. But there's a signature Model S too, right?
Yeah, actually, that's our next topic here. We did a video on a Model S that came into our shop, which we felt was very special. It's VIN number 10. And,
the white one?
The white one. If you're interested in getting some of the details about that car, it's on our YouTube channel, and we show you what we did with the car and why it's so special. The primary thing about this vehicle is these early Model S's were virtually hand-built. And the early team that participated in the hand-building included Elon. They wanted to make sure that the gaps were right, and that these cars would be viable once they were turned over to customers. So this particular one, we feel that Elon personally inspected. That was corroborated after we did the video, and some of the Tesla old-timers, which generally come out of the woodwork after the fact, confirmed that, yes, Elon was all over this car.
That's an interesting thing. You say that a lot. There's a lot of people, since we've been doing this stuff and since we've been on YouTube, a lot of people have come out of the woodwork, haven't they?
They do, and
I'm one of those people, I think.
Yeah. What we find is that the Tesla people, the majority of which that were involved with Roadster, are no longer with Tesla. In fact, one of the recent projections just last week was from one of the people still at Tesla that there may only be about 20 original Roadster people still at Tesla.
Wow.
There were, of course, hundreds, if not thousands, at one point in time that were involved.
That was my next question. How many were there? You think there were thousands?
Well, with 2,400 cars built. And it wasn't just Tesla US. A lot of these Roadsters were built in the UK by Lotus.
Sure.
And we had the privilege of working with the plant manager there about a few months ago regarding some parts, who was still at Lotus, who also fondly recalled the Tesla Roadster experience that they went through. Lots of challenges with that car.
Wow.
So the nostalgia is quite palpable with the old Tesla people.
People that remember that era, and you're one of them, but they always seem to feel like it's a miracle that Tesla's even still around.
Oh, totally, yeah. It was a very slim chance they would have actually emerged. And in all fairness to Elon, a lot of that has to do with his tenacity and unwillingness to give up.
Right. I think a lot of people criticize the free, unlimited, lifetime supercharging idea, right? Everybody says you can't do that, right? But
And, well, yeah, we all knew that it couldn't last forever, but in order to get some mass adoption underway, that was vital in order to convince people that EVs were a viable alternative to their ICE cars.
do you think that's something they'll ever bring back?
No,
No.
it costs too much. In one of our videos, well, the Supercharger video, the yearly cost to Tesla just for the electricity is $93 million. Now you have the lease space cost. You have all of the additional costs, the equipment costs. It's a staggering cost to a company. And if you look at it in its well, the basic premise, no car manufacturer on the planet gives you free fossil fuel after you buy a car. Tesla did so with a different type of fuel, but it's not sustainable.
So do you think that those cars with that with that free supercharging, do you think those are worth more or more valuable than the ones without it?
Oh, definitely, yeah, or should be if they aren't.
Awesome. We've got a nice silver one out there, guys. Free supercharging for life. Shoot me an offer.
So, recent Elon Twitter quote. This was kind of interesting. He says, "I was at Giga, Texas yesterday. The team is making excellent progress. The building will be almost a mile long when complete."
A mile-long building.
I can't imagine that. You know, it's not the type of a plant where you can actually effectively walk around. When I worked for Digital years ago, we had a 500,000 square foot facility, and it took you a good 10 minutes or so to go from one end to another.
Wow.
So yeah, I can't imagine what a mile would be. I mean,
They're probably riding segways around or golf carts or something, right?
yeah.
But a mile long factory to produce these cars. I mean, that's huge, isn't it?
You know, the other thing though is it all three sections put end to end, or is it a mile long in that centerpiece? You can probably get some perspective from the construction machinery around it. But those of you that are fact checkers, let's put that on the list. Is the Tesla Gigafactory, Texas, 1 mile long contiguous, or is it in sections?
That is a good question. How many jobs is this going to create?
Don't know that.
Probably quite a few, huh?
Well, that was one of the reasons that, yeah, Texas was very pleased to get this facility.
Sure. Absolutely. Seems good to me.
You know, one of the things we spoke about in the last podcast, Arizona is also attracting EV manufacturers. We have 3 majors already in the valley.
Who are those?
There's Electromechanica, Nikola, and Lucid.
Nice. Super exciting. When do we expect to see the Lucid cars on the road?
By the end of this year.
And do you think they'll be able to keep up to that deadline?
Well,
Or stay with it?
that's what they're saying. Now, they've begun to open retail shops at Fashion Square, for example. There was a ribbon cutting ceremony last Friday.
So they're doing the same thing. So they're following Tesla and doing the same thing with the retail locations and shopping malls and those types of things?
As to be expected, yeah.
Super
Yeah.
cool.
Peter Rawlinson was the engineering manager at Tesla for, I think, 7 years. And you have to observe their success while you work there. So I'm sure that was part of the justification. It's brilliant when you think about it. Like we said in one of our other videos, how many people go to car dealerships on a weekend? Actually none, unless you're looking for a car. But they spend a lot of time at the malls. So that's the place to capture your audience if you're looking to sell something.
Do you think that Lucid could give Tesla a run for its money?
I don't think any of them can. A lot of the other YouTube influencers feel the same way. Tesla's head start is undeniable, and it has to do with a number of things. They were first. They have extraordinarily talented engineering talent. They have scale of economies that none of these manufacturers are going to be able to meet with their limited production. Even the mature manufacturers, the GMs and Fords and the Europeans and the Japanese manufacturers. Tesla has enough volume now where they're going to be in front the entire race.
Especially with the supercharging network, which Aren't they getting ready to
They're
open that
opening it up, yeah.
up to other EVs other than Teslas, right?
Which all of us were surprised it took them this long. I mean, it's a great way to monetize and defray some of the costs for the supercharging network. Now, on the flip side, you've got some Tesla people that aren't happy about that because of the long lines at some of the locations.
That's what I was going to ask. So I charge a lot at Biltmore Fashion Park in Phoenix, and it's pretty busy. So should we be worried about that? Should we be worried about the superchargers being opened up to other EVs?
Definitely.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. Nice.
We came back from vacation with 3 granddaughters after a long trip from LA to Phoenix. None of us wanted to sit at a supercharger and wait for half an hour for a charge so we could get the rest of the way home. And it took us about a half an hour just to find a spot. The other thing we find is that there aren't any clear queuing protocols, especially in like the Biltmore, where you really don't have enough land to queue up. You've got only parking spots, and if the ice portion is full, then you have a few narrow pathways.
It's pretty funny to watch. Most people are pretty respectful for the most part.
Yeah,
you
they're
know?
pretty cool. Except one guy we had, he says, no, he says, I'm only gonna be here 15 minutes. I said, look, I've been circling this thing for 20 minutes now.
Right.
No, I'll be out of here quickly, so.
It's funny. Some people think the supercharging and just charging in general is an inconvenience, but what I found is there's some pretty amazing things you can do with your time when you're supercharging your Tesla. Pete, what do you do if you're driving your Tesla and you need to supercharge it? What do you do for that hour?
Well,
usually?
I have a wife that's a shopaholic, so we have to
Nice.
hit the stores. But a lot of people sit inside the cars. They're on those screens. They're on the internet. They're getting work done in some way.
I work out anytime I'm charging my Tesla. Like I spend that hour working out. Pretty good use of time, right? There's all kinds of positive things you can do.
Totally.
Read, all kinds of cool stuff. Make friends.
Yeah. So talking about Tesla, Texas for a moment, slated to be the Model Y and Cybertruck manufacturing facility. Again, we talked about it being a centrally located plant, which was a smart move by Tesla. Several months ago, Elon revealed that the plant would also produce the Model 3, giving North America's customer in the eastern portion of the continent their own dedicated production plant, reducing delivery and wait times. So it'll be interesting to see when the Cybertruck also is revealed. By the way, the Cybertruck, I should say released, the estimates are that they have amassed over 1 million pre-orders.
Are we getting one?
No, we have not yet decided to buy one.
We'll have to talk about that, right?
Yeah, all right.
One thing you mentioned, the Model 3s. I'm seeing so many people I'm seeing so many new temp tags on Model 3s and Ys. Like, a lot of people ask me whether they should consider buying a used Tesla, like the one I'm driving, the Model S, or a new Model 3. What do you think about, what do you tell people when they ask you that?
It's a real tough question because I get the same questions all the time. It has to do with budget. It has to do with risk. Are they willing to buy an older Model S that's about to go out of warranty? We talked about this as well. There are some business opportunities, extended warranties, third-party warranties, I think is the next gold rush for these EVs.
Sure.
But yeah, as far as advising people, boy, it really depends on a lot of things. How risk averse are you? And what is your budget primarily?
Sure thing. Cool.
We're at 40 minutes and we got some questions in there for you.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Let's take a
Yeah.
look at the questions. Absolutely.
Super cool. Should it just be right on the front of my phone?
Yeah, you have Discord open.
Yep.
So you should see Nick posted a bunch of questions in there. Should be 3 or 4 of them. You see those in the stream.
By the way, while he's
Oh, yeah, I
looking-
do. I just had to scroll down. Oh, go ahead,
Oh, you
Pete.
got it? No, I
Yeah.
was going to say wow, but if you've got questions, let's entertain them.
Yeah, and how do people send us these questions? On YouTube, right?
YouTube chat, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, send your questions. All right, so here's a question. Somebody's making sure that we're close to the mics. Thanks for that suggestion. So this question's from Tesla Charged, and he's asking, what are your thoughts on Tesla disabling supercharging on salvaged? Ooh, this is a juicy one. I love that. This is my favorite. Okay. What are your thoughts on Tesla disabling supercharging on salvaged vehicles? They recently, by mistake, turned it back on. Wait, is he saying that they recently turned it back on for all salvage vehicles?
I think maybe just in his case, their ability to track salvage cars is hit and miss, first of all. There are some agencies that you can tap into that give you a list of salvage cars. But let's go way back in history for a moment. Initially, Tesla's position on salvage cars was no service, no parts. You had to have a valid VIN in order to buy anything for a salvage car.
Right.
Which in the early days of Gruber Motor Company really was a problem for us because we were buying flood-damaged salvage cars.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get parts for them. So we ended up going into gray market, including even local type portals like OfferUp and LetGo, which has now merged with OfferUp, Craigslist, eBay. Eventually, Tesla began to relax that position, and especially with the Roadster. Today, they will sell you parts even if you have a salvage car. So that has improved tremendously. As far as supercharger support for a salvage car, let's put this back in perspective.
You're not going to get it, right?
They own the fuel. They're giving it away for free. They get to choose who gets it. And it definitely has a financial impact if they open it up to all salvage cars.
Sure. I know some of the salvage ones that we have over there supercharge fine, and then some of them don't, right?
That is true, yes.
And that's one thing I know. It's because you have quite a few nice salvage vehicles over there, but I think one question people are wondering is, like, do they have to worry if the supercharging is working on a salvage vehicle? Do they have to worry about it being shut off? You can really never know, right?
Well, Tesla's ultimate goal is to turn off supercharging on all vehicles, and they may have missed some.
Right.
So let's leave it at that.
Got it. Cool. The next question, actually, this is from my friend Hakab Parsimyan. What's up, Hakab? So Hakab asks, there is a lot of criticism about lithium batteries, which are mainly imported from developing countries, and their mining causes environmental damages. What do you think? Let me read this again. So he's asking, there is a lot of criticism about lithium batteries, which are mainly imported from developing countries, and their mining causes environmental damages. What do you think could be a solution for this? That's a good question, too.
It was something actually we covered earlier on in this podcast, which is recycling. If we can close that loop, it'll never be 100%. Let's be realistic.
It's interesting. It's not just how do we save the environment. It's how do we save the environment without making it worse at the same time.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's a good question, yeah. But yeah, steps are definitely being taken, including Tesla, as we mentioned, that is beginning their own internal recycling programs.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Very good. Hakab's got one more question. He's saying, how do you think the hydrogen-powered vehicles will compete with electric vehicles in the future?
You know, I have no expertise there, but I hear a lot of opinions. I think even Elon feels that hydrogen is a waste of time.
Why?
The economics that are associated with that, although on the surface, it's definitely a clean way to go. Your byproduct is water.
It seems like not too many years ago, that was the buzzword. Everybody was talking about these things. Hydrogen fuel cells.
It just seems that it's more economically viable at this point to continue with the lithium-ion or with the battery cell method for storage.
Sure.
And who knows, with the level of disruption occurring now and technology improving by just leapfrogging constantly, there may be other solutions in the horizon.
Sure. Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Hakab, for the questions. Next, we've got a question from Tim Rollins, and he's asking, people speculate the Ford Lightning will outsell the Cybertruck because of brand loyalty. Do we have any speculation on this? Speculation.
My own personal opinion is that the mature, tenured auto manufacturers are really needing to focus more on survival at this point in time. I think it's very difficult to take an existing infrastructure that's been around for many decades and switch that over to an EV type production. The new EV manufacturers have a much easier time. And my own opinion is that although they will make some forays into the EV world, I'm not sure that it's sustainable and that they're going to be able to switch over their production.
Right. What's
economically.
and some states like California, right? Isn't it, what year is it that they're outlawing the sale of new?
I think it's 2035.
2035. I definitely run into a lot of people that feel as though the speculation that all cars will be electric by then, they feel like that's not going to happen. There's no way. It's way too fast. And then the reason they often say that that's not going to happen is just because there's not adequate charging infrastructure for that. What do you think about that? Do you think, can we really expect this to happen by
The states that have mandated a cutoff by 2035 or whatever that date is, it's the production of ICE vehicles that's in question. We have a video on the collector car crash, which also speculates that shortly thereafter there is going to be a ban on ICE vehicles on the road. That just seems to be a natural progression from that position of not being able to manufacture them anymore.
Right, super interesting. So you really think that we're talking like these vehicles, these ICE vehicles at some point, you won't be allowed to drive them at all, even on like private property or?
You know, there's speculation that there may be limited use, recreational, maybe in enclosed racetracks was one of the things that that someone had predicted. It also, I think, plays into the severity of the environmental changes that are occurring on our planet. And at some point in time, if that continues to get noticeably worse, the sensitivity to that is going to increase. And things that are contributing to the planet's demise, I think, are going to be under much heavier scrutiny than they are now.
Sure. I actually have a question. I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. So all these ICE vehicles on the road and off the road, is there any way we could use all these vehicles and recycle them and repurpose them as EVs? And if that's possible, is there a reason we would want to consider doing that? Couldn't that, if we made use of those materials?
Well, there's an economic advantage to rebuilding ICE vehicles into EVs, but it's cost prohibitive at this point in time.
That's the issue.
It's much cheaper to just simply go out and buy the EV of your choice. Now, there will be a cottage industry of certain types of vehicles that people will want to electrify because they're collectible in some way for them. You know, somebody that owned a muscle car in the 60s while in high school may want to take that 69 Plymouth Roadrunner and electrify it rather than send it to the scrap heap, even though it costs them 3 times more than just buying an EV. So I think there's a market for that. No one has yet really come up with a large-scaled, viable operation for doing that, although I think it's coming.
Sure. Super cool. Thanks. Is there more questions?
That's it for the questions. We do have maybe 5-6 minutes left. You guys want to?
Okay. Actually, I have something else speaking about the impact, the environmental impact of these sustainable vehicles. There's another interesting statistic I came across. It said a recent study found that in 2020, Tesla customers helped accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy by avoiding 5 million metric tons of CO2e emissions. That seems like a staggering amount, does it not? 5 million?
Say that one more time.
All right. They, because of the proliferation of EVs, 5 million metric tons of CO2e emissions that would normally have been pumped into the air had been avoided because of the amount of EV adoption that has been taking place.
That's insane. So because of Tesla and Tesla
other
drivers,
EVs, and the other EVs as well.
We saved the environment from having 5 million metric tons.
Yep.
That's
Now,
huge.
How that relates to the overall amount that's being spewed is an interesting question. We'll leave that to the fact checkers. You know, what percentage does this represent? But again, any step in the right direction is welcome.
So if you're driving a Tesla, you can give yourself a pat on the back, right?
Absolutely.
Heck yeah.
Yes.
Super cool.
So this last week, we talked about how many visitors we get each week. And yesterday, I had a very interesting visit. Maybe we can put that up on the screen. One of our Tesla customers brought his son Nolan in. And Nolan has been a Tesla aficionado for years. He's 6 years old, loves Teslas, but he had never seen a Tesla Roadster.
You got to get him started young, you know?
Absolutely. So his new favorite Tesla is no longer his dad's plaid Model S, but this lightning or insane green VIN 100 Roadster.
Oh man, that's a pretty. Is that a customer car, or is that one for sale, or?
This is a customer car.
Okay.
It's in the final stages of repair at this point. It came in dead, bricked, and we found some problems in the battery that were contributing to that. It is the only insane green factory Roadster in the United States. It's the last of the Signature 100 cars. It's the first signature car that got external carbon fiber treatment. And it is for sale. Initially it was not, but I told the owner, I said, I posted pictures of your car on Facebook, and half the people are asking, how much is it? I want to buy it. Is it for sale? He says, well, I don't want to sell it.
I think
but
it's the color.
There's a price on anything. He says, what do you suggest? I said, well, we have collector cars out on our website, and the highest one is $1.5 million for the last production Roadster built.
Wow.
So he says, let's put it out there. If a potential buyer comes along, I might consider it. So
Sure.
if you want this car, it's available for $1.5 million at this point. By the way, this car was originally owned by a store owner. Gosh, I can't think of the name of it. It was like a precursor to Whole Foods, and it's the one that went bankrupt, went out of business a few years ago.
I think Whole Foods is, I've always used Whole Foods.
Fresh and Easy just came to me.
Okay.
The Fresh and Easy
I've never
guy
been there.
owned this. He had a little logo. The Fresh and Easy logo was just above the scoop in the back there.
That's so
And
cool.
it matched fairly closely the store colors of his chain.
And I want to just say about, because this was a tour, right?
Yeah.
We do a lot of tours together, but definitely if you're watching and you haven't taken the opportunity to come up and tour our facility, so it's a really cool experience, guys. I mean, I remember a couple weeks ago we had a super cool team of engineers from APS.
APS was here, yes.
And it's so cool because we're actually, these people that came and visited us a couple weeks, these are the people that are responsible for coming up with the ideas of how to clean up the power grid. And to be able to experience that and like listen to these conversations happen, it's really, really cool. So definitely, if you haven't come to tour our place up here, definitely do it. It's super cool for many more reasons than just the awesome cars.
And APS, by the way, which is our local utility for electricity, is very interested and concerned about the impact of having electric vehicles charging in homes because of the demand on the power grid.
Right.
They're also very interested in the vehicle-to-grid concept.
Right.
How you can backfeed energy from your car back into the grid.
Shout out to Heather Jackson if you're watching this.
Absolutely, yes.
Hey, I think we got another question, sure. Pete. But Bobby's asking, do you think it is possible to change the PWM of the traction motor so customers can customize a unique or louder starting sound for their own car? And then he has in parentheses, ignore the energy loss. Did you understand that question?
Yeah.
What's the PWM?
Pulse width modulation.
Okay.
What we're talking about there is tweaking the firmware so that the drivetrain gets more energy or different types of power. And you can definitely improve the performance. However, there's a downside, which is you're going to overdrive a motor, you're going to potentially have temperature problems, overheating.
Oh, it doesn't matter, right?
It doesn't matter.
No.
Not if you're a quarter-mile drag strip. It's only for 10 seconds or less. Nowadays, what is it, like 9 seconds for that plaid?
Man, I'm not sure. I know it's plaid 0 to 60 is 1.9.
It's 1.99. The quarter mile is 9.14 seconds, I think, was the record that was just broken. But
insane.
Yeah. So to get back to the question, we've got a video that's coming out shortly. We have a Tesla Roadster in-house that came to us unexpectedly, which actually has an experimental drivetrain in it. And this motor allegedly has been hand wound differently than the rest of the Roadster motors, which shaved the 0 to 60 from 3.7 seconds down to 3.0 seconds.
That's a big change.
It is. It is for for a small car like that especially. And what we're doing now is we're going to put it through test phases and figure out what they did. It's interesting, and this will be revealed in the video as well. Tesla actually tried to get this car back. They apparently didn't realize that this car had migrated out into the field.
I remember this story now.
And once they figured that out, they said, yeah, we should probably get this one back into the fold, and the customer refused to sell it back to them.
Is this the fastest Roadster then? The fastest?
It would potentially be the fastest Roadster made.
Super cool.
Yeah, so, but to answer the original question, yes, there are tweaks that you can do. We have not dived into that. We've been so busy just simply bringing Roadsters back to life, bringing now Model S's back to life, fixing batteries.
That's what's crazy, Pete. I mean, how long ago did we do that video? How long ago did we do that video? I think we titled it "The World's Cheapest Model S." We did the first. I mean, wasn't that really just like 4 or 5 months ago that was the first time we've done something like that?
We actually plagiarized Rich Rebuild's success. Remember that he built his 1 million subscribers with that very notion, the world's cheapest Model S, Dolores, the $6,000 car or something like that.
Yeah.
He had much greater success with his video than we did with ours, and it was probably because it was a second attempt at the same topic.
Right.
But there is a but. We have a new video that will soon be out with a local customer that we're collaborating with, and we're going to attempt to prove that a Tesla Model S can be converted into a submarine. And actually,
wait, guys, did you hear that?
underwater.
So we're gonna convert this guy's Tesla into a submarine.
Yes, and we're finding some engineering challenges. We're going to have to put 2,000 pounds of lead into the car in order to keep it submerged, and it's going to go through a trough.
People are doing some really fun things with these cars. Somebody ran up to me at the Supercharger the other day and said that they were putting Model 3 battery packs in catamarans.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, crazy.
Makes sense, yeah. Makes
Awesome.
perfect sense. So, do we have any other questions?
I think that...
Okay.
But what I meant to say earlier is just, aside from the video, that was the first pack really that we pulled out and disassembled here on the Model S. But since then, how many battery packs have we done in this short amount of time?
Oh, the Model S battery packs, we probably do about 2 or 3 a week these days.
Right. Wow. And I know it's a process, taking it apart and pulling it down. It takes a lot of special equipment, right?
It does. And, I don't want to paint a picture here that there is mass failure in the Model S world.
No.
It just so happens that we are the only company that we know of that's able to repair these packs down to the level that we do.
Right.
There are companies that can open it up and change modules, but when it gets down to picking out the faulty cells and fixing the actual module, that's where we specialize, and eventually that will change. The other thing that needs to be considered is these cell problems or these problems with the Model S battery pack are aberrations. They are not the norm. Again, the life expectancy of a Tesla Model S battery could be extrapolated out to the same life expectancy that we're seeing from the Roadster, which is now going on 13 years.
So it's fair to say that if a used Model S battery pack is likely going to last 13 years.
It's fair to make that claim, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the most questions I get about the Teslas from people that want a Tesla is, they're just so worried about the battery pack degrading. But I personally feel like there's too much worry about that. I don't think that they're quite as I don't think that they actually do degrade quite as much as everybody worries about.
Yeah, they're
them.
more resilient than most people think. And what of course terrifies them is that $22,000 price tag. We talked about that in another video as well. Will that price come down anytime soon? Well, it's going to be difficult because Tesla is passing those packs on at near cost. They claim that there isn't a lot of margin in those. You have shipping costs, for example, to get it from the factory to the service center, and so there's some overhead costs and then the installation costs. But
sure,
I don't know if that 22,000 is going to substantially change over the next few years.
Sure. I do. There's one more question. I did have somebody ask me. I don't know if we know about that here, but my friend Austin wants to know about the best way to finance a new Model 3. Do we have answers to that?
We used to have a financing availability for our customers that were buying critical power, but financing is available from a variety of
Anywhere.
outside sources. You don't have to you don't have to finance from the company that you're buying a car from necessarily.
Right. So just whatever the best deal is, right?
It used to be years ago that credit unions were a great place. They were, the interest rates were lower than banks. They also had dealer invoice books, so you could go to a credit union, you could find that car that you're looking to purchase, you can find out exactly what that dealer is paying for it. Armed with that information, you walk into your dealership now and you tell them, I'm going to pay you 2 or 3% over your cost.
That is
And
how
they
it
were
worked.
shocked that you knew their cost.
Yep.
And of course, then they tried to tag on a bunch of stuff, dealer prep charges and, all kinds of additional costs.
Yeah, wild. Super cool. Is that all the questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm Pete Gruber, and with our guest, Aaron McKenzie, we appreciate you spending this morning with us. And as always, we appreciate your support of our channel.
One other thing, I just sent this in the Discord, if you can read that. Just a quick little statement.
We have something else that we want to add? Okay.
Yeah, so it's just that so we may be changing the time for this live stream by a few hours. So make sure to check up with us on our social media for updates. We want to make sure that as many people that want to see this as possible can get to it, and we're doing it at the right time.